Before we get into this week's episode, She Sets a Standard London Live is back. Friday, the 13th of November, 2026, we are hosting the third edition of the premium business event in Europe. The theme for this year is decisions from a different dimension, because you do not need more information. You don't need another strategy. You don't need to look at somebody else's framework to know how to run your business. It is about taking decisions from a completely different vantage point, tapping into that self-trust and feeling that aliveness in your business. We have an incredible selection of speakers who have built businesses to insane levels of success, are sharing how they made that happen, the decisions that made that happen, and that they're still doing today as they continue to run industry category leading businesses. And you will immerse yourself in the experience of setting the standard that you want to lead with next. We do not design this event to be a place where you come and listen and sit back and get information. It is about changing, shifting your identity and what you see as possible in the room. The tickets for She Sets a Standard are live now. I cannot wait to see who's in that room and to see the breakthroughs from this year. Get your ticket in the show notes. The point isn't what are they going to do? I've just had these conversations in the last week. But how much of this type of thinking are you sat on and not recognizing that this is something that you could be scaling, that you could be thinking differently about, asking a different question, get out of the default of, well, I need to sell through this way. I need to create an offer because this is what other people have created an offer on based on my space. Why? Because you have original thinking that nobody else has. So therefore, why would you create your offers in the same way that everybody else does? Welcome to Rich Work, the podcast for established female entrepreneurs ready to turn their expertise into premium clients and consistent high ticket revenue. I'm Rachel Pearson, global brand and business strategist, skincare obsessed, and always distracted by booking the next mini break. Here you'll learn how to position like a luxury brand, attract clients who love to invest, and build wealth that actually lasts. So you can create the business and life you want, not someone else's version of success. This is where premium positioning and building wealth meet for women who are rewriting the rules. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the second episode in this mini-series on my predictions for what we're going to see coming into the latter half of 2026 and into 2027. And in this episode, I'm going to be talking about how to scale your intellectual property, which I know before you switch off, it sounds dull as dishwater, but it's not. It is super sexy. And if you're still skeptical, just listen into the episode. Let me convince you otherwise, because this is where you're going to walk away from this episode thinking, I actually have an idea. I have an idea that can make me more money. I have an idea that I am not being creative with. And that's the whole point of what your intellectual property is. So if you haven't gone into the last episode where I spoke about how I see the future of businesses as being run more like media companies, even if you are a single personal brand, that you are becoming more like a media company because you can distribute your thinking into more spaces, into more places where your ideal clients are. And of course, that starts with what your thinking is. And I think often when you talk about intellectual property is just your ideas, the ideas that can only come from you, the original thinking, the things that you think are weird that nobody else gets, the things that you say and you think are so normal, but actually other people are going, how the heck does she do that? That is absolute genius. Those things, those conversations are your intellectual property. It's the thing that can only come from your brain. And when we say the term intellectual property or IP, it can freak you out because it can feel like, but I don't have something that is that big or that is high value or that is bold enough to be something that anybody would care about or that anybody would actually want to protect. And you do. You absolutely do. And this is the conversation that I have with a lot of my clients, or I help them to take business models that they've had for a long time that make them a great amount of money, and we look at them completely differently because I look at them through their intellectual property. And so in this episode, because the whole idea of thinking like a media company is that you have original thought that not enough people are hearing about right now. And you can start a podcast, you can go on TV, you can go on radio, you can post 15 times a day on Instagram. That's not what's going to help it. It's about how we think about scaling your business differently through scaling your thinking. And I'm going to take 3 examples, like real life examples that I've worked on in the last week, that some of them are just conversations right now, but to hopefully help you to see that what you're doing right now is absolutely something that you can turn into a bigger aspect of business, a new revenue opportunity that all comes from your thinking. And again, I know that I keep on coming back to AI in these episodes, but I can't do a series about the future of business without touching on AI. AI is so powerful in a lot of positive ways and in some not so positive ways, like all aspects of technology. But the thing that it cannot do is to keep up with the pace of how, as humans, we connect ideas. And at a premium business level, that is what your clients are paying for. They are not paying for information. They are paying for how you connect up ideas, information, insight that is going to help them to get their desired result faster. So when we can connect those ideas and enable them to be accessed in a different way, that's another way of you reaching your ideal clients as well. So let's go into the 3 examples, and they are really different. The first one is a part of my consultancy work that I am working on with a leading, very well-known female entrepreneur, and not just in the UK, but she's very well-known in the UK and also worked globally. And she came to me because she has developed a lot of thinking and a lot of experience. She has sold 3 businesses for multi-7 into 8 figures. She is an advisor to the UK government for female entrepreneurship. She sits on the board of incredible companies. She has huge amounts of real lived experience of scaling businesses, exiting businesses, leading businesses, sitting on boards, like gold mine of experience. And yes, people can hear from her when she does interviews and when she does conferences, when she does talks, but she's so mission driven. She's so impact driven that she wants to enable people to be able to access her thinking. So she has created a program that enables that to happen. Now, I can't go into huge amounts of details in this podcast about it because there are some things that are still being worked through, but also this is to illustrate. It's not to sell in any way. And obviously I'm involved in it. So I want to use it to highlight opportunities. But the impact that this thinking can have is not just by creating a course that we then just sell to lots of people. That is one way of being able to get your thinking out there, but we're thinking about how this can become much bigger than that. It can be licensed into companies. It can be, people can be trained in this approach. They can get a qualification in this approach. There are so many ways to think about this that are not simply about creating a product and selling it to as many people as possible. And this is what is really important about when you think about your intellectual property. It's not about how you just put everything you know into a £47 course because then you haven't scaled your expertise. You've actually done is you've just discounted it, and you've signaled to the market, to your potential buyers, that your thinking is just readily available, and that changes how they value it. So scaling IP into wealth means that who you license it to matters, what they are doing with it matters, the spaces that you build around it to support it, that matters. The exclusivity of access is not just about limiting who gets access to it, it's also about keeping the value of this thinking in place. And this is what all of the things that we've been considering as we bring her thinking into the market, is that it has a very relevant positioning now, that the clients that we know that this will hugely benefit, that they see it as a really valuable offer. But in the future, we also have a roadmap, we have a plan for how the thinking, the intellectual property that is in this program can have much bigger reach. And that's not just through selling it as a program, it's also through qualifications, training, licensing, thinking about different ways to get the thinking into more people's hands, but the right people's hands. So that is one example. Another is a conversation that I had with one of my calibration mastermind clients, where we had a call last week talking about, she runs a membership. That's one of her offers. And she has done a phenomenal job with this membership. It does not have thousands of people in it, but what she has created has such a high retention rate, which is really important in a membership. But the results that this membership gets, it's a marketing and a content membership, are incredible. And people rave about this offer. They invite their friends in, they talk about it openly on social media, weekly. They tag her all the time because they absolutely love it. And we were talking about the membership on our call and talking about how to grow it and the retention strategy as it grows. How do we make sure that it continues to have the space and the culture and what people love about it, and that doesn't get diluted? Of course, when you grow an offer like a membership that is really more of a volume-based offer, right? You have more people in it, then that can start to take up more of your time. And so that was a consideration. That's what we were also talking about, is how does her time then go into this membership to make sure that it's still the quality and the standard that she wants it to be, whilst also being able to develop other parts of her business. And I said to her, why is it that we are just looking at you scaling this membership? And she kind of stopped and just looked at me on our Zoom call. She's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, you could franchise this. And this is just a conversation at the moment. But why I'm sharing it is that sometimes we're just looking so in the space of how we see things are done and within the realms of how we originally started to build something. I said to her, look, you've created something that has an incredible community. You've developed it in a really intentional way. People absolutely love it. You have a rhythm of the week that works. You have prompts. You have different structured sessions that mean that people get so much from this membership. And other people want to be able to host a membership, have a community exactly like this, but they don't know how to do it. So either you can franchise it because there's an element of in person that she's bringing in with events, and then they could be hosted in other regions. You could franchise this model and bring people in to effectively run this membership on a bigger scale for you, using your approach to creating this incredible community, your original thinking that has made this space what it is. We could franchise it, or you could license it. Both of these ways are models that enable her original thinking, her intellectual property, to be scaled, but not by being associated with a cap on her time. Because we're scaling the thinking, we're not scaling her own business, right? The constraints of her business are obviously her time, her capacity to be able to input, to set the vision, to be able to implement everything. And who knows whether this is something that she'll take forward in the future, but even just shifting that conversation into that space has meant that she's now thinking really differently about how she scales the membership as it is right now. And then the third example, if you're still sat there going, well, Rachel, I don't have a membership and I'm not an entrepreneur that's got 25 years of experience, comes from my group of friends, my group of school friends who I've got a group of best friends that I've had for 30 something years. We grew up from being at school and, have grown up, now got our own children. And we have 2 meetups a year minimum. We try and push for more. And I just went to one at the weekend before recording this episode. And I was talking to one of my friends who is a physiotherapist, and she has an amazing amount of knowledge about so many different things. We were in Wales and we went to the beach and she went swimming in the sea. And when we were at school, she was the lifeguard at our local pool. She's always loved swimming. She does open water swimming now. And she was telling us all this stuff about how the safety of open water swimming and all these things that she teaches her own girls. She's got 3 daughters. Because we've just had this crazy heat wave in the UK, we were talking about how important it is that teenagers and children really understand how to safely go into water, not to enter, but also how to make sure they are being safe when they are cooling down and going into water. And I just looked at her and I said, you could absolutely sell this information. And it's funny when we meet up because none of them are in business like I am in business. They're teachers, physiotherapists, they are interior designers, all successful in their own right. But I'm the one that comes in and says wacky, weird stuff like, why don't you monetize this? And she said, I can't. I don't know anything. I said, you do. You've just spoken. We've all been asking you questions as 4 other mums that have children that we are so worried about in these heat conditions as they get older and they're going to be going out. How do we teach them? How do we educate them? Because they're not going to do that at school. They'll have swimming at school, but they won't be educated on this. So this is absolutely all you need to be able to really start to think in this way is you need to solve a high priority problem for people that are willing to pay to solve it. That's what you need to do. And yes, this podcast is all about premium positioning, but premium positioning or running a premium business or selling high ticket and thinking about how to think like a luxury brand is simply addressing those 2 questions, but at a higher stakes level. It's a different level of problem, right? It's not a, how do I keep my children safe? It's a, how do I help businesses to exit or to sell for multiple millions? That's why I'm able to charge for my consultancy at the level that I charge at, because that's the problem that I help people to solve. So I said to her, you have a high priority problem and you have people that would pay, are going to pay to solve this. And so then we started to talk about how she could do it with different ways that it could become an ebook, and she could create a funnel that then sold this ebook around water safety, but very specifically for open water swimming. And I said, you could leverage AI to be able to take the information, the insight that you've got and just help you to break it down into topics, because right now you're so close to it that you don't think this is valuable and you don't see why people would buy this. But because you're so close to it, you need something else to filter and show you the learning points in it, the topics of how you break it down. Again, I don't know if she's gone off from our weekend and thought, that was a crazy conversation that I had with Rachel. I don't know why she wants me to be monetizing my knowledge into a ebook, but she may very well go away and create a whole open water swimming course for teenagers. But the point isn't what are they going to do? I just had these conversations in the last week. But how much of this type of thinking are you sat on and not recognizing that this is something that you could be scaling, that you could be thinking differently about, asking a different question, get out of the default of, well, I need to sell through this way. I need to create an offer because this is what other people have created an offer on based on my space. Why? Because you have original thinking that nobody else has. So therefore, why would you create your offers in the same way that everybody else does? And so this is my invitation from this week's episode is it's not about how you get your IP, your intellectual property, your thinking to more people. It's what is the structure that allows your thinking to compound in value, to not just sit there, not sit in your Google Docs, not sit in your endless notes on your phone, not sit in that half-formed thought where you go, that would be an amazing idea, and then you don't do anything with it. She Sets the Standard is in London on Friday the 13th of November. We are going to make it lucky. It is a one-day business event that is unlike any other business event. I created She Sets the Standard because I love in-person experiences. I love hearing conversations. I think there is so much that you get from being in the room with other business owners, of connecting, networking, being in the energy. But I also found that most events that I went to were talking about what is happening now and what is working now rather than looking at what's happening next. I also wanted to create an event that is a whole identity experience that doesn't just leave you inspired in the room, but shifts you. It changes you because you are hearing conversations that you don't typically hear, that you are connecting with speakers, hearing from women who you don't usually see speaking in such an intimate space, and you don't usually get such close access to. That is why I decided to create this event, to really create a standard of an event that I know will change whoever comes and walks out of there. So tickets are available for She Sets the Standard. It is Friday the 13th of November in central London. If you have loved this conversation, then you will absolutely love to be at this event. The tickets are at the link in the show notes. And if you have any questions, then you can DM me at rachelpearson.co or find me also over on LinkedIn. This is Rich Work. I am Rachel Pearson, and I will see you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to Rich Work. I'd love it if you left a review. It helps other women to find us. In the meantime, follow me on Instagram at rachelpearson.co for a different take on premium positioning, one that's not about fitting a box. See you next week.